distance still to jump on, but the men's steeplechasers are coming out shortly. And a small but high caliber field, 9 athletes out there, 3 Kenyans, 2 Australians, 1 athlete each from England, Wales, India and Canada. And if I tell you that the last 6 Commonwealth Games has seen Kenya produce a clean sweep, 1, 2, 3, all the medals, well, they are the only nation that have the opportunity to do that yet again here today with their 3 representatives who are very strong. There is Abraham Kibiwott, 5th at the World Championships, the 26-year-old silver medalist 4 years ago, behind Kosteslos Kipruto, his compatriot. And there is Kipruto, has made a comeback this year, the Rio Games Olympic champion, twice world champion, 2017, 2019. He is the defending champion here, who took a bronze in Eugene 19 days ago. Edward Trippas of Australia is in there as well, the 23-year-old, went out in his heats in Eugene. He's an 8:20 performer this year. John Gay of Canada, 15th in Tokyo last year. Graham Fell, the last non-Kenyan athlete to take a medal in the Commonwealth Games, apart from Kenya. That was in '86. There is Avinash Sable, 11th at the World Championships in Eugene. Good athlete, 8:12 this year. Amos Serem, the reigning world under-20 champion in Nairobi last year, took gold. He's an 8:09 performer. He's still only 19. Jonathan Hopkins, 6th in the Commonwealth Games for Wales. Back in 2018, 8:31 this year, close to his lifetime best. There's Zach Seddon, European under-23 champion back in 2013. Went out in his heats in Tokyo, but he was 5th in the European Championships in 2018. And Ben Buckingham completes the lineup for Australia, the 30-year-old, went out in his heats in Eugene, but he has run 8:19 this year. That's a personal best. World class used to be considered anything close to 8:20, anything under 8:20. Now times have moved on. And with plenty of athletes having broken the 8-minute barrier. I say plenty of athletes, 13 men in history have broken 8 minutes. 9 of them are Kenyan, 10 of them Kenyan-born. So where we go then, Rob Walken, can you see anybody denying Kenya a retention of the title? Might be tougher to figure out which of the 3 Kenyans starts as favourite, but it is a very strong trio they brought here to Birmingham.
Really strong, Tim, and I think you would fancy them perhaps to go 7 clean sweeps in a row. Perhaps looking on paper, Tim, you touched on Sable and what a great season he's had with that national record when he was 5th in Rabat, the Indian leading. Maybe if one of the Kenyans runs into a problem, if he can run anywhere close to that 8:12 national record, it would be a sensational situation for the Indian to get in the shake-up. But you mentioned Serem, world junior champion, Kipruto, the defending champion, coming back to form, and Kibiwott, one of the fastest men in the world this year, and the national champion. The trio of Kenyans are absolutely sensational. It is hard to see beyond them.
Well, Kenya's dominance of the steeplechase over the last 20 years and more, 30 years, is unquestioned. It is beginning to show 1 or 2 cracks in Eugene. A couple of weeks back, 19 days ago, at the World Championships, El Bakali of Morocco, who is the Olympic champion, took gold in Oregon. Gurma of Ethiopia took a silver medal. Only Kosteslos Kipruto got Kenya onto the rostrum with his bronze medal. But the last 8 Commonwealth Games have been won by Kenya. And I mentioned Graham Fell. He was a London lad, born in Essex, and he changed to Canadian nationality, and in 1986 in Edinburgh he took a bronze medal. That was the last non-Kenyan medal won at the Commonwealth Games in the steeplechase, 1986.
And look at that, Tim. As if to underline the Kenyan dominance, Sable is the only one even vaguely attempting or able to go with them. John Gay is trying to lead that little quintet, but already down the back straight there are huge gaps. It's Gay just towards the right of picture. Sable is doing his level best here. If he's going to have any chance at all, he's got to be this bold. And how good is it, Tim, to see Kosteslos Kipruto coming back to something like his best form? I think that bronze in Eugene was highly significant for him.
It was indeed. Sable, I don't know if he wanted this to happen. He went to the front, set off at a reasonable tempo. The Kenyans came past him and accelerated. He's gone with them. And the race, with less than a kilometre gone, has been ripped apart by the Kenyans. Kosteslos Kipruto in the middle there of this Kenyan trio. I talked about 1-2-3s for Kenya. 2:39 that first kilometre. It's sub 8-minute tempo. This is fantastically fast. The Commonwealth Games record was by Kipruto 4 years ago, 8:10. This will be significantly quicker unless there's a significant slowing. Sable just latched onto this trio of Kenyan vests. It's Kibiwot, Kipruto, and Serem, 1, 2, 3. Sable in fourth place. He will be hoping that one of them fades or maybe comes a cropper at one of these obstacles. We saw it last night in the women's steeplechase. The Olympic champion hitting a barrier with a lap and a half to go, allowing an English athlete to take a super silver. Sable tucked in behind them, but if he even if he hangs on to this, Rob, doesn't get a medal, he may get a personal best. The Indian there in blue, he's having a fabulous run so far.
Well, the interesting thing about this pace, Tim, at their very best, these three Kenyans are capable of running very close to 8 minutes. But this season, Serem 8:09, Kipruto 8:08, and Kibiwot 8:06. All three of them running 5 or 6 seconds quicker at the moment than they have done all season. If Sable can hang on, it wouldn't just be a PB, it would be a national record. The worry for him, has he gone too hard, too early to stay in contention for a medal?
Well, he's got 3 pacemakers in effect, the Indian there, to write a picture in fourth place. By the way, the wind has picked up. When we arrived here and went on air a couple of hours ago, there was no wind here in Alexander Stadium. The flags were hanging limply, but now they are out hanging blowing very stiffly. The wind is up. I don't know if any's getting down there on the track, but if it's not, then conditions are just about perfect. That looks like the Welshman in 5th place, Jonathan Hopkins 6th in the last Commonwealth Games, having a good solid run here. Zach Seddon in the white vest of England leading that Aussie duo. The Australians Ben Buckingham and Edward Trippas trying to move along and give a good account of themselves. And they may well be. The trouble is they're all wallowing in the wake of this incredibly fast pace up out front. And 2:39 for the first K. And I don't think there's been a great deal of let up so far. In fact, it's Gay who is pushing on hard in 5th place now behind this quartet. But look at this echelon of Kenyans. 1, 2, 3. Sable battling on to try and stay with this trio. Are we heading for another Kenyan 1, 2, 3, or could there be an upset?
Well, Tim, you and I spend a lot of time covering distance races in India, and they'll be so proud and so excited to see Avinash Sable. 2:47 that second K from a 2:39 opener. It was inevitable they would slow down. They are miles clear of Gay of Canada, who's in 5th. Watch for Kipruto in 2nd. This is a guy who's won everything. World Youth title, World Junior title, 5 consecutive World Championship medals. And Kibiwot's just having a little look over his shoulder there, Tim. I think he feels one or two of his compatriots as we look at Kipruto in 2nd. I think the leader's asking for a little bit of help. He just gesticulated to Kipruto in 2nd as if to say, come on, 2 laps to go, you need to get involved.
Well, he's pushing on Kibiwot and actually getting a bit of a gap on Kipruto. Conseslus Kipruto is not the same runner he was 2 or 3 years ago. He's been having trouble this last couple of years, injury problems in particular, as well as the problems away from the track. And while it's been great to see him back this year, Conseslus Kipruto, he is the Rio Olympic champion, he's the defending Commonwealth champion, he's twice world champion. And this wonderful return from him is so good to see. But he's run 8:08 this year, and Kibiwot here is pushing on and maybe taking it into territory that Kipruto just cannot live with. And in fact, that gap is growing, Rob, very significantly. 1.5 seconds there at that water jump for the penultimate time.
Kibiwot does have the advantage, and look at that. Conseslus Kipruto has been dropped. Sable has moved up into the silver medal position. This will be generating incredible excitement back in India. He's having the race of his life.
The bell then in about 7:07. Kibiwot continues to lead. Sable in 2nd place. The irony of this is that Sable of India in the blue, who surely now is heading for a medal from the age of 6, almost Kenyan style, because we're so familiar with this story for the Kenyans, would run or walk to school the 6 kilometres distance between home and school as there was no transport. And that is what so many of the Kenyans do. And Sable now pulls up alongside Kibiwot. It's unthinkable, surely, that a Kenyan can be defeated. They're not going to have a 1-2-3, barring disaster in this next 150 metres. The water jump for the final time. This is critical. A little skip there from Kibiwot. What was that all about? Sable in second place, a metre down. Has he got the speed? Kibiwot grimacing, looks over his shoulder. Sable, this final barrier is critical. Sable takes it well. Kibiwot a little better. I don't know if the Indian's going to get there, or is he? As they come to the line, it's going to be tight. Sable's so close. He runs a new personal best, surely, the winning time, 8:11. A superb silver for the Indian, but gold again for Kibiwot of Kenya. Abraham Kibiwot, second in the last Commonwealth Games, goes the one place better that was available to him. Coming through for fifth place is Gay of Canada. What a good run from him. In fact, fourth, I think, for Gay there, as Conseslus Kiproto hits the blockers over the final lap and almost walks across the line. Brilliant running from Abraham Kibiwot, but surely the story of that race is the fabulous effort from Avinash Sable of India. A personal best, a national record, of course, 8:11:20. The landscape of steeplechasing is changing.
Tim, that was absolutely brilliant. Abraham Kibiwot had to use every single ounce of his energy to take that title. He was really stuttering into that last water jump because he was determined to not touch the top of the barrier. He realised the Indian was closing on him, and it was a good jump in the end. But how tight was that? 0.05 of a second, a PB and a national record for Sable. We knew this young guy was good when he came fifth in Rabat and broke the Indian national record. Honestly, what Chopra has done with the javelin, the Olympic champion taking the World Championship silver medalist, Sable has just done with that brilliant, sensational silver in the steeplechase. He was barely a whisker away from pulling off what would have been, Tim, the greatest upset of the...
This race transforms from a fast contest into something far more meaningful, a moment that captures both the legacy and the future of the 3,000-meter steeplechase. For decades, this event has been almost synonymous with Kenyan dominance. Generation after generation, Kenyan athletes have dictated not just the results, but the very rhythm of the race itself, controlling the pace, mastering the barriers, and owning the podium. And coming into this final, everything suggested that history would simply repeat itself once again. The field was strong, but the spotlight was firmly on the Kenyan trio, Abraham Kibiwot, Conseslus Kiproto, and Amos Serum. Between them, they carried Olympic titles, world championships, and a level of experience that few others in the race could even approach. On paper, this wasn't just a race, it looked like another chapter in a long-running story of dominance. But what unfolded was something far more compelling. Right from the start, the Kenyans made their intentions clear. This would not be a tactical, slow-burning race. Instead, they injected a relentless, punishing pace almost immediately. The first kilometer, covered in 2:39, was not just fast, it was a statement. A warning to the rest of the field, keep up if you can, survive if you must. And most couldn't. One by one, the field began to fracture. Gaps opened. The rhythm of the barriers became harder to maintain. The water jumps drained energy with every lap. Very quickly, the race stopped being about winning. For most athletes, it became about enduring. But one runner refused to accept that role. Avinash Sable of India made a decision that defined the entire race. Instead of settling into the chasing pack, he chose to go with the leaders, to match the Kenyan pace stride for stride. It was a bold move. A dangerous move. Because in the steeplechase, going out too hard doesn't just cost you speed, it destroys your rhythm, your efficiency, your entire race. And yet, he held on. By the second kilometer, the damage had already been done to the rest of the field. The race was no longer a group, it was a breakaway. 3 Kenyans, and 1 challenger. The gap behind them continued to grow, turning the final into something almost symbolic, dominance versus defiance. Then came the turning point. With just under 2 laps to go, Abraham Kibiwott made his move. It wasn't explosive, it was calculated. A gradual increase in pressure that tested not just speed, but resilience. And that's when the first crack appeared. Kipruto, the Olympic champion, the defending title holder, began to lose contact. Suddenly, everything changed. Sable moved into second place. Now it was no longer about hanging on. Now it was about chasing history. What followed was one of the most courageous sequences of running you'll ever see. Sable didn't panic. He didn't overstride. Over every barrier, through every water jump, his technique stayed controlled, efficient, composed. And slowly, almost unbelievably, he began to close the gap. You could see it happening. Step by step. Meter by meter. The final lap turned the race into pure drama. Kibiwott was still leading, but the signs of fatigue were unmistakable. His stride tightened. His movements over the barriers became just slightly less fluid. Behind him, Sable was gaining, not wildly, but relentlessly. Then came the final water jump, the decisive moment. Kibiwott attacked it cleanly, knowing that even the smallest mistake could cost him everything. Sable followed, landing strong, immediately accelerating into the final straight. And for a brief, electric moment, it looked possible. Not just a medal, but something far bigger. An upset. A break in decades of dominance. The crowd could feel it. The commentators could feel it. The tension was almost unbearable. But in the end, experience, and just enough of a margin, held firm. Kibiwott crossed the line first, stopping the clock at 8:11. A winning time that underlined just how fast and demanding this race had been. But the real story was right behind him. Sable finished just fractions of a second later. A personal best. A national record. And one of the most remarkable performances ever seen in this event. Because this wasn't just about silver. This was about proving that the gap is closing. That the steeplechase, long dominated by one nation, is entering a new era, where courage, belief, and execution can bring anyone to the edge of history. And on this day, in this race, we came closer than ever to seeing that history rewritten.